Hello, welcome to the Independent Candidate Forum for Pocatello Mayor. That's going to be voted on in November. I'm excited to be here today with Sierra Idaho Lorax and also Mr. Sam Laoboonmi from Sam's Gunshot. Today we're going to ask a few questions that I have brought, but we're also accepting questions from the audience or from callers. All right. Thank you guys for being here today.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
The first question is actually in response to another independent candidate that we have, and this is from his Facebook website, which is a great way to get your message out there and a way for people to know you a little bit better. So unfortunately, a lot of these come in little sound bites, a few sentences, so I'd like to have our current candidates expand on this kind of idea. Mr. Horst said in regards to conservation that we need to reduce some of our green space and set a good example for others to follow with water-wise landscaping. Reducing the green spaces no one uses also reduces the cost to maintain it. My answer to this is, what I'm wondering is the parks of Pocatello are key points of community interaction and recreation. Some of us don't even really have much of a yard, so we depend on these places to go play, so to speak. And a lot of our public spaces, I believe, are watered by non-potable sources, while most of our personal lawns and gardens are watered with municipal water. It would be interesting to know how much water is used in public spaces and how much of the budget does this take up. And so based on this, could you expand on this thought perhaps and give your process that you would use if you were going to enact these water-saving plans?
Hey, okay. Well, I've been involved with parks here, and one program is called Parks to Gardens, Gardens to Parks. It was to actually look at putting community gardens in every park. Los Angeles as a city has done that, and we tried to institute this here. Doesn't use any more water than is used to water the grass.
So please continue on your Parks to Garden idea.
Yeah, the Parks to Gardens, Gardens to Parks was, again, to have other options that people can do and support communities, at least neighborhoods in that respect. Again, doesn't take any more water than what they're already using to keep the grass green. It's just using that way. At that time, the parks and the city council was not favorable of issues in that because they had issues like, what about when you no longer have a garden? Well, let's work on that when we get there. Let's see about growing food and people getting involved in their neighborhoods, because we had some neighborhoods that had community gardens. And to date, this young teenager over there in Constitution Park, which is a lot of trailers over that part of town, and that park, she wanted to institute the same kind of thing. And we wish the best for her. I definitely will help her on that, not just Constitution Park, but every park in our town. So again, we need avenues of which we can get out there and grow things, be positive about it. The parks people were all recreation people. They didn't understand that, hey, this is a learning activity for children and parents and people in the neighborhood, not just, something to play in, and worry about people robbing. Come on, I went to Berkeley. We had People's Park and always had a garden. That's what it all started over, and it's still there, I won't want to say how long that is, but, a while. We have a People's Park here. But in reference to that issue that you have there, People's Park, which is 2801 North Main Street over there, where Pocatello Creek enters the Portneuf, that was meant to be a natural park, and it's a very popular place, probably the most popular place for people to go for photographs with their weddings and everything. It was a natural situation. That's a park, not a watered up golf park kind of things. Now we need those for games, and play fields, and I think that is important because there is a lot of activity in that area, and we need a place to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Laoboonmi, do you have any thoughts to add to that?
Well, let me explain a little bit. I moved in town here some time ago with a family. I have 2 daughters, still young. We live in an apartment because we couldn't afford to buy the house. So the apartment don't have any space or any lawn or anything to, for our kid to playing around. We always take the kid, in summertime, go to the Ross Park, Alameda Park, or I think that's a good idea, to have it, a little bit more space for the, growing up city Pocatello. You don't know how many people moving in. The present mayor right now announced going to be about 20,000 families moving in here. So we have to take a look at the area because some people cannot afford to buy the house right away. In summertime they have to go to, public park or anything. Especially Ross Park is my favorite place. I think it depended upon what the resident of Pocatello want.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
If I can add a little bit to that. Because that's first I heard about 10 or 20,000 people. I hope they're bringing their own water because we have the smallest watershed in Idaho, I believe, for any municipality of any size, and probably a lot of small towns as well. We have one of the smallest, if not the smallest, aquifer system here, and it's very limited. We've reached its peak. We have problems with water quality. And just because we had a good wet year, that's not going to solve the problem of too many people for a little bit of water.
That's true. All right, thank you very much. Informative answers. My next question is related to the first, still thinking about water in Pocatello and water quality. So most of us realize that Pocatello suffers from poor water quality, poor drinking water quality, due to, among other things, lack of infrastructure and failing or missing septic systems. Are environmental issues a priority, specifically water quality? And if so, what actions would you propose to mitigate these problems?
Me again? Okay, well, I am part of the Pocatello Municipal Watershed. I am a beaver activist or active beaver person, and so much for phones, especially ones you don't know how to use yet. So basically, we're looking at water here that is limited. It's reached low levels. It takes, we had a good water year, but it takes 5 years for water to move through this valley. And that's our lake. If we could see our lake, if it was like eastern places where here's your reservoir water, and you can see when it's down and when it gets toxic. We had that in American Falls when the waters got really low and somebody went in there and tested the sediments and everything. They kind of freaked out. They said, never let that happen again because very toxic. And same thing what happens in an aquifer. I mean, basically, materials enter it. They can get caught in it, and they can settle in it in the lower levels, especially if they're not part of the natural matrix of the rock and the rock body. So you have things where, life was meant, and I'll use the P word, piss, outdoors, okay? Because then you have soils that break down the nitrogens. But when you take it and put it below it.
What would your actual methods be to mitigate some of these problems?
Well, we're doing what we can in terms of getting people into a septic system that people can deal with. That's, and every metropolis has to deal with that because not everybody can go outside and take a leak and fertilize the soil. Like it's done below that level, and therefore it doesn't get broken down. So it stays in it. Nitrogen levels go up. So obviously we do moderate that. We've had several instances where we've had to deal with the problem or near level or try to raise the level of acceptable levels of contaminants in it. There's all kinds of contaminants in our lake, so to speak, our aquifer. And so monitoring is just kind of giving you information. Hopefully not all of that's been accurate or want to be told. But the thing is, because we all depend on it. There is no other source here except go to the store and buy your water from somebody else and someplace else. So I'm not for that because we're not a place that can bottle our water. All I should say, you shouldn't drink Pocatello water. It's not a healthy water source. And where it comes from is, so before it gets in the aquifer, sure, there are people go up in springs and places like that. It's pretty high quality water, and very nutrient rich and not with toxins, because
Not
it
like
comes from our watershed.
E. coli. I mean, that's
Yeah.
one of the most recent issues, is that we have a spike in E. coli in our own city creek. And so that speaks to important land management that the mayor could have significant effects on.
Well, sure.
Well, I live in larger city before I moved here, Los Angeles. We have a problem with the water too, but the engineer and water resource have been do something about. They have a processing plant. We should to have some of those to get rid of E. coli and whatever the chemical we don't want in the water. We have, I know we have a limited supply on the aquifer. We put it up, take water out from the ground. We have a very limited supply from aquifer here. So the best thing to do is we consider take some water out from American Fall and process it. But gonna be too expensive in the long run if we have a more population here. The septic tank in certain area you cannot do anything much about it. You have to let it go, you know, whatever it is, because when the city expanded certain area or the county, I think the city didn't annex all of those areas. That is the county problem. We should to tell county, you know, take care of those. You know, the city of Pocatello here, people don't have a septic tank, but we have to talk to the you know, county, Bannock County, what we're going to do about those, you know, limit a certain amount or whatever it is. For me, you know, we don't have any water problem here yet, but we can have to look forward. We're going to have. If we have a drought like several years ago, we have a drought, we don't have enough water seep into aquifer. So we don't have any, the city couldn't get the water out enough. I remember we have a limitation to turn sprinkler on and everything every other day. Now, for contamination, we cannot help. I worked at INL for many years at engineer. We don't have any problem with the radiation because the government really be careful. I can drink any water from INL, well water over there from the faucet. That's what we use. I don't have any problem with it. So we shouldn't have any problem around here. I don't think it's you know, radiation or anything, you know, from INL, you know, contaminate our water resource over here. The best thing to do is let's see, put on the table and see what we're going to do with the water problem in the future, and let the profession deciding which way they want to go. And the same as I like to see, you know, some input from resident of Pocatello.
Very good, thank you.
I may add a little to that because, yeah, you're right about INL. I worked at INL myself. INL's come a long way with their oversight group in terms of quality of protecting the environment. The uranium problems in Pocatello are not from INL, and they're not from nuclear fallout. They're locally put here. So yeah, our waters do have uranium materials in them. And that's been tested, and it's in our data, and there's lots of source areas for continually getting into the groundwater system here. That's why projects of removing that has helped to make things safer here in this valley, which was put here by the FMC Corporation ultimately, but via certain avenues that do it. This town has millions of tons of uranium materials in it. That's one of the issues that of course I run, is to clean up Pocatello. First cup, clean up Pocatello. It's like a new prosperity. There's money out there, just like a lot of money went in INL. And there's a lot of money for a community to be able to clean it up. I testified in the hearings. They said any amount. And basically we're talking billions of dollars come here and clean up this community, which is jobs for everybody.
Any response to that, sir?
Well, the problem we have is that, you have to take a look. Nobody pollute the Pocatello or no city water or anything.
There is the E. coli.
The E. coli, we can
And
process,
nitrates.
you can do the, what they call the process or do something about the E. coli. I'm not a medical doctor. I don't know much about some of those things, but I know it's a very dangerous virus. And
Bacteria.
I don't know how to prevent it. I tell you the truth. When I don't know, I say I don't know.
But as mayor, and that's one of the things I think people want to know about, as mayor, how would you fill those gaps in your knowledge? I mean, who would you get to help you? Would you form a
Well, we have to
group?
try.
Would you-
I'm sorry.
No
we have to
problem.
try to
I don't
find.
expect you to be the expert
We
at
have to
everything.
try to find some professionally come over and give us some consulting, and I'm not going to say, oh yeah, we can put the chlorine in there, oh yeah, we're going to have every boil in the water or something like that. But when we have a problem like that, we should to consult a professional. That's the way to do. That's what I have been learned. And the college and everything there, nobody know everything. Okay.
Well, I'll agree there. Nobody knows everything, but I did do an article on that water and the E. coli. First of all, E. coli is a term that we've learned to understand, but there are a variety of E. coli. There's human E. coli, there's animal E. coli, and they tried to blame the dog E. coli. And
Well, there are many strains of this
yeah,
bacteria.
many strains of the bacteria, but not all of us, we're adapted to it or we get adapted to it. It's just like when you travel in the country, Montezuma's Revenge or something, you actually have to adjust your body's organisms that live inside you for that. But when they tried to blame the dogs, I had an issue about that because I'd never seen a dog go poop in the water. I just haven't. I mean, they just don't do that, They lick their butt, I know that, but they don't necessarily poop in the water, and not even that close to the water, unless, of course, their human counterpart has got them leashed, and that's where they are, and people like to get near water.
So where do you think most of that E. coli is coming from?
Well, in the past, we had range activities up there, and also up in some of those areas where the wells were. I mean, we had wells put in. I don't even know about the sewer system up there, whether it's all tied into the city or they're all on wells. And so those facts, if it's the case, because it is high up there, I don't know. Some of those are open there a long time, those houses, and I assume that was before some of this, whether they've gotten connected. That's not something I know of. I look at other issues, like I know how much uranium materials is up there by City Creek, up on the thing. I was surprised at how much that was there in loose powder form. But again, who's to blame? People always want to look for somebody to blame on it, and it's addressing it, especially if it's human E. coli is the issue, the varieties that'll cause diarrhea in you, more likely than a dog or anything else that goes poop in the water, which is wildlife and it's always there. And so I've never had that I know of those kinds of issues, and I swim in the Portneuf River. Of course, I would always say don't drink it.
Sure. So would you also recommend putting together some sort of task force of people that could perhaps do water quality analysis and things like this all the time to
I've
look
been
deeper
critical.
into the sources of
I've been critical of the water analysis here, just as the air and quality. It was done in a way to just try to get the best things out of what their data is showing, because it's run by government. They want to look good. But you don't solve a problem. In fact, the problem gets worse if you don't deal with it. So obviously my own expertise in the area, but actually, of course, having a team that goes in there and does it correctly. And to say, hey, when it's dirty, say it's dirty. Don't just say, no, it's just a little brownish. Talk about what it is really, the problems there.
All right, thank you very much. We have about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to move on to my final question. And this comes from the other graduate students at Idaho State University. I'm a graduate student in the Biological Sciences Department. And one of my colleagues asked about Pocatello's schools, infrastructure, and emergency operations. All those things are becoming outdated. I mean, Pocatello has a long history, and it shows in some of our buildings. What kind of leadership will you provide to increase support for these essential Pocatello structures and the functions they provide. And I'd just like to note that the current school levy is only for 2 years.
Well, for me, a school is more important. Education is more important for me. The best way to get evaluation on each school, which school need to upgrade, especially Pocatello High School. It had been built for some time. We should look into the structure of the building and everything, the safety, and let's see how can we expand or anything on Pocatello High School. The problem is we don't have any levy enough money, and we have to look at the school district, how much money they spend it, and a lot of things I found out they spend it the wrong way. It's not the right way, I do know. And we should to take some of those waste money to put in the right area. Especially, education is more important for me. 2 of our daughters graduated from Highland High School. That's getting old too, but they had been upgrading several things, but I don't know how good the shape is, And we should to cut in certain area, give more money for the teacher. The teacher is really working hard, teaching all of those youngsters. I know how hard it is. And I never be one, but I know. I used to have a friend as a teacher. She say, the worst thing is at the high school. And that's the way she say, okay? So we have to, I'm from overseas. I went to the school which is very strict. I have to respect the teacher. When the teacher walk past by, I have to stop and some kind of, bow to them before they walk past by. When the teacher says something, you don't argue. Because even she's wrong, we can talk to her after. Okay, that's the way I have been learned. And we can have a lot of family coming in here. We have to look at another resource. The money, very limited. We pay the highest tax in Pocatello. I hate to say increasing up the tax or levy or anything at all. Look at another resource that we can get some federal help, or we can get some, I think we can do that without, raising the tax.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to give Mr. Lorax a couple minutes to respond as well, since we're almost out of time. Thank you.
Yeah, that's to add that when I taught in Thailand, they don't quite bow as much as they do, but there is a lot of respect for teachers, and not just Thailand, but a lot of countries in the world. And that's a great feeling as a teacher, being out there. I myself have worked for the school district here. I myself am also illegally, and I will say this very clearly, illegally violating on my civil rights here, trying to keep me banned from Pocatello School District. So how can I effectively right now deal with them until they stop contaminating our children? Everybody knows this. And
But
they
say
need
you
to
were
be aware.
allowed to go, there was nothing barring you, and you were mayor. How would you increase support for, say, schools, since
Okay.
we're focusing on that?
First of all, what I know what's going on, and that's a lot of homeschools in Pocatello. Met a lot of people that don't even bring their children in the schools here. And they have good reason for it. And that's something we don't even address, how to help that element. We could say we could put lots of money into public schools, but public school systems has its problems. It's got its leashes all over the place that keeps creativity out of the classroom. When I worked for the school district, I was tremendously creative. They just like, whoa, everything I did out there. But now, they always tied into, well, this is what our policy says, or this is what our grant says. Federal government has put so many leashes on it, it strangles the school district in this area in many ways. there are some exceptional charter schools in Pocatello, exceptional, that taught what I do. And we'll name them right now, but that's the kind of directions we need to go, and that's what I did. We used to have team teaching in Pocatello. We had models. We had a whole school set up for that, those kinds of models, which are highly effective environments. And we put up our walls and separated everybody and stopped it all back years ago. But there was that point, that time, when that was moving in that direction. Obviously, from my experience as an educator, I would want to see this instituted back here, because there's such a gap between what we're learning at the university and then what's going on in the school and being able to integrate it into it. They're actually very much blocked to do this. And that's been, what I've seen, not just here, but other places, but less so because when I'm hired someplace, that's what they want. And so they say, this is what we want you to do. Come give the workshops, give the direction, teach us how to do these things. So the team teaching, cooperative schools and things like that.
So would you be for retrofitting schools that are becoming a little bit derelict? And how would you, as for infrastructure?
Well, even infrastructure, we talk about Pocatello.
Put more in the budget for that.
Yeah, Pocatello High School, they looked at having it as a magnet school. Yeah, had it as a magnet school one time. And that was a good direction to go with Pocatello High School. And if you're not aware of some things, the whole environment of old downtown shared things. So the football team goes and plays over at Irving. And the tennis courts over here where people can use and other people can use it. It's like more of an integrated system, not a prison where everything is on the school property there. I mean, it's nice if we got the space and nice if we got the money, but collaboration, cooperation was how that was built as a Pocatello High School. People went there for years, and I just saw Jamie, who came late, but she graduated from Pocatello High School, Jamie Hudson, but she backed away a little because she got here late.
Well,
so
I think that we're about out of time.
Yeah, about out of time. Let you wrap it up.
Well,
please.
thank
Go
you
ahead.
very much for being with us today. This is very informative for us. I hope that you keep continuing to come out to these events. I believe I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning, but I'm Stephanie Zorio. Again, I'm from Idaho State University, and I hope that we can have more community outreach from all sectors of our stakeholders. So thank you very much.
And thank you, Stephanie. Yeah.